Okay. So I want to welcome everybody here today. Thank you for being here. And this is a webinar with one of our partners with Cradlepoint. My name is Carolyn Taylor. I'm one of the event managers with NISA BC. I'm going to run through a few slides and then I'm going to turn it over to our team that is here for you today. So if you could just update your screen name to be your first name and last name and municipality. I see some of you already have that. We do hope that you'll keep your video on because it's always nicer to present to a person versus a black screen. And we ask that you stay on mute when you're not speaking, but we will have Q&A at the end. You do have the option to raise your hand, but we're a smaller group today, so you can just jump into the conversation, I'm pretty sure. But Nathan and Mike and Luke will give us the heads up on how they want questions from the group. I'll continue to let people in as we go along. We want to keep things confidential if people are sharing personal information. And we also do have closed captioning available. So we acknowledge the lands on which we are gathering today are the gathering place for many Indigenous people, and we honor and respect the history of these people. I am a guest on the lands of the Esquimalt and Songhees people, also known as Victorian. Just let you quickly read, this is what I affectionately call our kindness policy. Obviously, we want to have an environment that's free of any kind of disruption, and we want to support our members with dignity at our events. We're taking the summer off, so CIO Roundtable and peer sharing will resume in September and October, respectfully. And then, of course, we have our conference in Kelowna, which we can't wait to see you all at. We have a YouTube channel and we have a LinkedIn channel where we will be posting the replay of this session. And we encourage you to follow us there so that you get updates when we do post things. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the folks from Cradlepoint. And I want to thank you again all for being here and enjoy your conversation. I'll see you again at the end.
Okay, great. I'll kick things off here. And as far as questions go, we would love to take them live. If you want to unmute and ask or put them in chat, we can handle them however. And if you're watching this recording, we will have a slide with our email addresses at the end. So also you can feel free to reach out there. So welcome, thanks for spending time with us today. My name is Luke. I'm the sales manager here for Cradlepoint in Western Canada. And for us, that means from BC to Manitoba. I've got a couple others with me here today. So first off, Nathan is my engineering partner who can answer any of the real tough questions you may have. We actually both live in BC, at Kelowna, BC. So I look forward to meeting some of you up here at the fall conference. We've also got Mike Pappas, who is a guest from the City of Edmonton. He's got a great use case and is in the middle of installing hundreds of Cradlepoint devices. So we'll do a proper introduction of Mike a little bit later, but essentially we invited him along to talk about the current rollout of his transit fleet. And knowing, of course, that most BC cities aren't responsible for their own buses, but most of you will have vehicles that could see some of the same benefits of managing a mobile fleet at scale. So let's get into it. We want to focus most of this webinar on actual use cases, but I always like to start with a few slides about Cradlepoint, who we are, what we do, just making sure that those of you who aren't familiar with us have kind of a level set. So we have a strong belief that anything that can go wireless will go wireless. And so similar to what the LAN has done with Wi-Fi, now that cellular speeds are fast enough to handle most business needs, we're seeing a big shift to wireless WAN. You can see here that Cradlepoint's been doing cellular connectivity for about 17 years now. We've got a ton of customers around the world. We're particularly proud of some of the big names that have chosen Cradlepoint. And you can sort of see some stats along the bottom there. You also might notice on our logo, we were actually purchased by Ericsson about 2.5 years ago, which has been a big deal for us for a few different reasons. First, there's been a big investment in R&D. So being able to come out with a bunch of new products, especially now that, that 5G is becoming a big thing. Most of our new products are 5G capable. But probably even more important is that we get to develop our products in conjunction with the Ericsson engineers. So making sure that we can connect properly, we can roam efficiently, things like that, because the big three carriers here in Canada, so that's TELUS, Bell, and Rogers, they've all selected Ericsson to build out their 5G core. So generally, we can make sure that we've got a much more stable connection than some of the other ones. Okay. Lots of solutions in lots of different areas. We kind of like to generalize and simplify them down to four main market segments. So the first are sites, which are typically buildings, but these could be things like temporary pop-up locations. Next is IoT, which would be devices. So things like kiosks, digital signs, security cameras, lots of different smart city use cases. That all tends to fall into the IoT segment. Vehicles, of course, is where we're going to dive a little bit deeper today with some use cases. But essentially, that's anything that moves. And then the last one on there is probably our newest segment. That's private networks. And you know, we can't really do this in Canada today, at least not yet. Well, I should maybe correct that. You can build out a private cellular network, but you have to partner with one of the major carriers to do that, which of course can get pretty expensive in a hurry. In the US, for some time, they've actually had some spectrum set aside to allow cities and companies to build out their own private networks. We're told, well, the government has announced that that's going to be allowed in Canada. So we expect to see that coming next year. Okay, next slide is a product. So don't worry about all the numbers or the model numbers on here, but to put it very simply, we make routers. We specialize in cellular. So every device on there will have at least one cellular modem in it. There's lots of different form factors for different use cases. We've got 4G and 5G capable devices. You can see on the left-hand side, those are our branch or sites, typically fixed locations. We've got a couple different form factors. So the black colored devices on the top, those are all-in-one routers. So you can put in both a wired connection as well as having that cellular failover, and it's your SD-WAN router to allow you to do switching over between them. They typically have Wi-Fi built in as well as a whole bunch of security features, things like VPN or content filtering, things like that. We also make adapters, which are basically, if you have your own router, then you can put an adapter in front of it and give yourself that cellular connectivity. And then going over towards the right, just know that we have a bunch of more rugged devices if they need to be out in the cold or handle the vibration of a moving vehicle, things like a bus. You'll see that the City of Edmonton is actually using that IBR 1700 on the top right. So let's have a look at another big differentiator for us, and arguably this is probably the biggest one, and it's cloud management. So we call it Net Cloud Manager. It's being able to do things like zero-touch deployments, where you can ship a device directly to a site, put in a SIM card, and you've already done that configuration up in the cloud. It just calls home, downloads its config, and it's up and running. So that's real handy, especially at scale. So if you've got a lot of devices, being able to push a configuration update to all your devices at once, or a firmware or a security update, that can be done. Probably as important is the reporting. So being able to have a look at what's going on on your network, across all of your devices, especially on the cellular side where data overages can get expensive. This gives you the ability to kind of see who's on your network and what are they doing. So looking at layer 7, are they, maybe you're allowing YouTube or streaming video, but you don't want to allow it at 4K. So you can really tighten up how much data you're using and prevent your data overages.
And that's important too, not just from a data usage perspective, but from a bandwidth utilization. Like if you're in more rural areas where higher speed connectivity isn't quite there, controlling data usage is one thing, but also being able to prioritize applications, prevent applications from hogging up bandwidth unnecessarily, are all things that you can do centrally from NetCloud Manager, create a group configuration, push that down to all your devices and keep policy consistent.
Awesome, thanks, Nathan. Okay, let's get into some use cases. So before I turn it over to the IoT and vehicle section, I just wanted to include one slide on sites. This is what we kind of focused on in our last presentation. So we were at the MISA conference in Victoria last year, and we had the government of BC there with some of their use cases. So you can see on this slide, those last 3, this is just a generic slide. That's actually the government of BC. But I wanted to talk through just a few of them. So the first one there, before we get into the government use case, is an accounting firm. So this is, they're across Canada. They've got, over 1,000 locations, a lot of pop-up locations. They set up in malls, for instance, during tax season, things like that. They've selected an all-in-one device. So they handle both the wired connection as well as having that built-in cellular modem, just making sure that they've got 24/7 uptime. And then over towards the government of BC, they actually, rather than using an all-in-one router, they already had a router, an SD-WAN router that they were happy using and just wanted to provide cellular. So they chose Cradlepoint for that. So started with using us just as a failover, making sure that they had 100% uptime. But they kind of got a 2-for-1 device in there, and that adapter that they use can actually be used for out-of-band management as well. So you can plug that adapter into console ports downstream, so into any router or switch. And now you've got this cellular out-of-band management that if anything goes wrong with, let's say, the main wired connection, you can do some remote troubleshooting. And then, of course, they took that one step further, took that device and created a network in a box or a grab-and-go kit. And they've used us for lots of different reasons. Elections is one, right? If you want to set up in, let's say, a school gymnasium or say a community center, they can take that there and set up, just plug it in and have instant network. They also used us for some emergency responses. So in BC, of course, we've got some floods and fires that happened, and they use us in use cases like that. And Nathan, I think that's probably a good time to turn it over to you.
Sounds great. Yeah, so as Luke said, I'm the technical counterpart of sales or solutions engineer, and Luke and I partner up together as a team. So I'll cover kind of the IoT mobile use cases, as well as some demonstrations of our management platform as well. So moving into IoT, IoT means a lot of things to a lot of different people. From our perspective, it's basically a semi-ruggedized device that probably doesn't have a knowledge worker connected in behind that. So that can be connecting up sensors, that can be connecting up things like traffic control cabinets, irrigation controllers, waste and wastewater management sites, security cameras in locations where it's difficult to get a wired connection to, or where Wi-Fi isn't necessarily feasible. These are generally smaller devices, potentially lower throughput, but can go up to 5G if necessary, for providing connectivity anywhere that's needed. Our devices can all be dropped in wherever you want to install them. Basically, we need power, antennas, and a SIM card. They'll connect to the cellular network. They automatically register with NetCloud Manager and fall into place. So there's no pre-staging required in the vast majority of cases, no pre-configuration, downloading of firmware, uploading of configuration files. That all happens automatically as soon as that device connects to the internet and reaches out to our management platform automatically. So again, it could be as simple as pop-up retail. It could be locations where it's difficult to get a trenched wire connection. It could be a visitor center. It could be a building where you've got an ATM, you've got digital signage, you have a device that may even be in a location where you do have a managed network, but you have a third-party piece of equipment that's coming in that you don't want to be on your network. You don't want to be responsible for the security for. You don't want to be responsible for managing access. These small devices can be connected directly in Wi-Fi or wired into any IP-connected device and give it its own air-gapped, isolated internet connection. And then obviously mobility is probably the biggest market that we're in. And when we say mobility or mobile devices, that's anything that's able to move and be on the road, or anything that's fully ruggedized. So anything that's outdoors full time, anything that's exposed to the elements. This could be, we've done rest stop Wi-Fi, for example, that's out in areas that get wet, they get cold, they get hot. Fully ruggedized devices, as well as vibration certification, as Luke mentioned, for light rail, could be school buses, ambulances, fleet vehicles, fire trucks, anything like that. So we take all those same security, visibility, control capabilities that Luke mentioned on the branch side, and we bring that over to in-vehicle. So rather than needing a separate content filtering solution or intrusion prevention solution, or doing a VPN tunnel up to external service that controls your data usage and applications, we can do all of that right on the device before it leaves the device, before it consumes bandwidth, and before it goes out to the internet. So there's a myriad of use cases where this can apply. Again, vehicles is probably the primary use case for it. Fixed locations that are outdoors, temporary construction sites, or anywhere that network in a box use case is great as well, where you can pull something off the shelf for a temporary location. It could be an event that you're hosting in a park, and provide Wi-Fi for internal applications or guest Wi-Fi as well. Our routers are flexible in terms of what you can do with them. A lot of them, you can actually put Docker containers and edge computing built into the device, so you can run custom applications natively onto the device. You can extend the use cases that we have built in, or the features that we have natively, with SDK applications that are easy to write with simple Python scripts that can take anything that the router can see and connect to. It could be IoT sensors, analog sensors, GPIO connected sensors, and take custom action depending on what the router has visibility into. So why is it important, or how do we differentiate ourselves? It's primarily around being able to support any use case you can really throw at it, but again, keeping that easy to manage. All these devices that were generally maybe purpose-built, maybe you had a device that was in a vehicle that was just doing GPS tracking and location. Those use cases are now starting to grow as we have higher bandwidth available in a vehicle or out at a remote site. We can start adding in these extra applications that take more bandwidth, but have more security requirements, have more throughput requirements, and need to support different use cases. And having to go out, reconfigure those devices, try and retrofit them after the fact isn't always easy. But with our NetCloud Manager platform, it's as simple as creating a group configuration, modifying that configuration, and it gets automatically pushed out to every single one of those devices that are in that group. And especially when you go beyond, a small handful of devices and you start scaling that out, now the amount of legwork it requires to keep these policies consistent, making sure that nobody is modifying them on a device-by-device basis, tracking that change management process, and ensuring that you have a consistent experience, only gets more difficult the larger number of devices that you have. So every single one of our devices, regardless of the model that you choose, is managed the same way. If you're managing IoT, branch, and mobile all within an account, you have the ability to see that in a single pane of glass. A couple of additional mobile-specific use cases. We've been in the US a lot longer than we've been in Canada. You'll see most of the largest fire departments within the US use our devices within a fire apparatus. Most of the largest public transportation authorities, you've got New York, you've got a bunch of them in California distributed throughout the US. A lot of police services. So about 25% of all first responder vehicles within the US have a Cradlepoint router in them. And that's connecting license plate readers, cameras, sensors of sirens and light bars, anything within the vehicle, MDTs, anything that needs connectivity, they can support. So a lot of different use cases depending on what needs connectivity. And then again, to bring that more local, and that's why we have Mike here with us, Edmonton Transit started their rollout early this year. So I'll introduce Mike, and we'll do a little bit of an interview on his deployment and use cases. So Mike, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Mike Pappas. I'm a computer engineer from Edmonton, and my role is the manager of bus technology for Edmonton Transit. So our team manages basically all of the smart technology on board our buses and the supporting infrastructure. So I manage a team of 11 people, including engineers, technologists, and data analysts.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. What was your use case for looking at a cellular solution that led you to Cradlepoint?
Yeah, so we've got a number of systems on our fleet that require a reliable and always-on internet connection. So the first and most important would be our CAD AVL system, and we refer to that as Smart Bus. So we use that to provide real-time vehicle adherence and location to our customers, as well as providing a comprehensive operational tool for our control center to monitor and manage the system. The next would be our camera system, and that provides basically enhanced security to our customers and operators, and allows for the control center to perform live video streams of buses during emergencies. So that's a very key security feature we have. And then most recently, we had our smart fare system, which is an electronic fare payment on board the buses. So providing connectivity allows us to facilitate thousands of transactions every day, and our customers have been making good use of that feature.
Awesome, thank you. So how far into your deployment are you, and how's the experience been with Cradlepoint so far?
We're well into it. So we're in the back half of our installation project. We should be hitting 600 devices installed by the end of this week, and that was after starting late January. So we're making good progress there. We're installing about 10 devices per day, I would say, on average, so almost 50 a week. So we're hitting a good clip there.
That's great. And how has that install process been from a deployment configuration perspective?
Actually, it's been very impressive, and we really appreciated how easy it's been to configure these devices. So since we require a VPN connection, we've split the devices across 3 different groups, each assigned to a different Cradlepoint VPN concentrator. And what that does is it keeps things relatively simple from the configuration perspective. So we can store that configuration on the group level, add the device to the group, and then that configuration is automatically pushed out to each device. And then any individual configurations we need, which each device has an individual IP address, is all done via an API script that you, Nathan, prepared for us. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. So from the physical install perspective, what do the installers go through? Are they doing any configuration themselves?
Nope. So the contractor we have doing the installations, he mounts and installs the device and does all the wiring, but he doesn't actually have to do any configuration on his own. So thanks to NetCloud Manager, basically we have a zero-touch deployment. They install the device, and as soon as it reaches the network through the Rogers SIM card, it pulls all the necessary configurations from NetCloud Manager, and it's ready for service within a few minutes without us having to touch the device. So that really saves our team. We're very busy from having to go out and physically touch and configure each device, and just saves time in the grand scheme of things. Awesome.
I know you evaluated a few options. What do you like most about the Cradlepoint solution?
Yeah. So we had a few different solutions out there to choose from, but Cradlepoint offered the most complete solution that fit our business needs, while providing some additional features that we're excited to make use of in the future. The first feature I'd like to highlight would be device management. So that device management software allows for easy remote management of a large fleet of routers on our buses. So as I mentioned, we got just about 600 devices already, with another 200 on the way. And the ability to push those configurations automatically and at a group level is something we're really taking advantage of, and it's helped us a lot. There's also a wide suite of reporting tools available for troubleshooting devices, viewing data usage, and just viewing overall system health. And we've got a lot of directors and other folks that want to keep a check-in on how our system's operating. So those different reporting tools allow them to do so. And our tech team obviously makes use of those different reports and troubleshooting tools to keep everything up and running. And then lastly, but not least, though we're not leveraging 5G right now, we're comfortable knowing that our devices are future-proofed and 5G capable if and when we decide to make that jump.
That's great. So without obviously holding you to it, is there other use cases that you might plan to use the routers for going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something we always throw around, and it hasn't quite materialized, but there's been thoughts of offering guest Wi-Fi for passengers on our buses. And thankfully, the IBR 1700 that we're using are capable of providing that functionality. So we would likely choose to install an additional modem in the same router to provide that second cellular network, so we can keep the traffic separate between our operational traffic and the guest Wi-Fi. So the router allows us to do that. We're also interested in doing more with the custom API tools. That's something we like to get hands-on and tweak and try to find things to boost our productivity. So being able to develop scripts and processes and different applications on the device will enhance our operational processes. And then lastly, something that caught our eye was the ability to read vehicle CAN bus, so J1939 data using an adapter. Our maintenance and tech teams are very interested in having that information available to them kind of in real time. So being able to explore that further is something we're definitely interested in.
Great. Well, that's all the questions I have, Mike. Really appreciate your time on the call and giving us your insight. If anybody on the call does have questions, they can post them in the chat Q&A, and Mike will hang around for a little bit to answer them. Otherwise, thanks again, Mike, and we'll carry on.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right. So what I actually have here is a couple of screenshots from Mike's dashboard, from the Edmonton Transit dashboard, that shows a little bit of the deployment and the information that what they're able to get out of it. And then I'll flip over and I'll do an actual demo of a demo account that we have as well. So as you can see here, GPS is built into every device that we sell, branch mobile or IoT. So if a device can get a GPS fix, we'll plot that on the map. And you can see the number of buses that Edmonton has in their account, green being online, red being offline. So if a device is parked and shut off or unavailable, you can see exactly where it last checked in and the time. We'll show the street address, geo-resolved based on the coordinates, our best guess of where that is. And you can see the GPS location can get pretty precise. So we'll obviously report this information into NetCloud Manager. As Mike mentioned, you can pull a lot of this data out of the dashboard using API tools for integration with custom applications or additional use cases. The other thing we have the ability to do is marry up this data. So taking GPS data as well as signal strength data, we keep a historical record of all of that, and then we can build a coverage heat map that'll show you where you have areas of good and poor coverage, and you can use that to either try and improve coverage in certain areas, or at least be aware that as we move into this zone, there may be poor cellular coverage, which translates to poor connectivity. We can combat a lot of those things, obviously, with antenna design, dual modem, as Mike suggested. So you can do 2 modems within the same router, to load balance between the two to increase throughput, for segmentation of traffic. Again, guest Wi-Fi going out one modem, for example, can't impede on any production traffic that would go through the embedded modem. Or for carrier diversity, you can do different carriers in each modem, have them active, and then we can bring in SD-WAN technology, which has traditionally been kind of restricted to the branch use cases or to the sites, and extend that into a vehicle as well. And that could be between 2 cellular connections, between cellular and satellite, or cellular and Wi-Fi as WAN. So as these buses are parked in a garage or in a depot that has Wi-Fi connection, the Edmonton team is leveraging Wi-Fi as WAN to offload that bulk data, so it's not going over a potentially metered connection such as cellular. And this is the device inventory page, or kind of the landing page when you first log into NetCloud Manager. So again, taken right out of Edmonton Transit's account, you have the ability to see online, offline status of the devices. We can see interface status, configuration, sync information. You can do firmware management, making sure these devices are in compliance. You can modify configuration of a single device or a group right from within this dashboard here. And then you can see actually here up in the top left, we have this little wrench icon on one of these devices. So if a configuration ever gets pushed out to one of our devices in the field and that configuration gets rejected, or that configuration causes the device to stop connecting into NetCloud Manager, there's a built-in mechanism where there's a back-off timer. And if that connectivity doesn't get restored automatically, the router will revert that configuration with no user intervention to that last known good configuration, check back into our cloud management platform and alert you to that. So that's what this is saying here. This is saying configuration was pushed down. It caused a connectivity loss. We've rolled that back so that that device is not offline. You don't have to send a truck roll dispatch out there to go reset the device or manually reconfigure it. And then you from the cloud can correct those changes and push that config resume whenever you feel like you've resolved the issue. So it really prevents the occurrence of a device goes offline, we've lost track of it, now we have to go find it, we have to go manually reconfigure that. Alerts and logs is all within here as well. So you'll be able to see any sort of device logs, any issues, anything you want to be notified on, you'll be able to see from within NetCloud Manager, optionally email and webhooks alerts for those critical alerts as well. And this is the last screenshot I'll show from Edmonton's dashboard before flipping over to a live one. And this is data usage management. So this is broken down by carrier. And if you have pooled carrier data plans, whether or not you have data caps and data overage charges, it's handy to be able to see the trends of data usage. So you can see here, this is at the top broken down month by month over the last 6 months. And you can actually see as Edmonton's rollout has started gaining traction, they started right at about the end of January. You can see data usage increase month by month over time as more and more buses have come online. And then within an individual month or billing cycle, you can put in the date that your billing cycle starts. If it doesn't start on the first of the month. We'll track data usage across all routers that have a SIM card from a given carrier in it automatically. And then we'll show you where you're at. So I took this screenshot, you can see on June 22nd. And then we will even forecast or predict based on your own usage patterns where we think you'll end up at the end of your billing cycle, and then a best case and a worst case to kind of margins for that. And that way, before you get to the end of a billing cycle, or as you're starting to see anomalous usage, we can see whether that's off track or not. And you can catch that early in the billing cycle, make configuration changes, start blocking applications, throttling applications if needed. And then we do have the ability to dive in to see what that looks like from a application usage perspective. So which applications are using the most data, application categories, which end devices are using the most data, and which router they're connected to, and even tracking clients as they move between multiple routers. All that visible from NetCloud Manager, and you can configure that there. All right, I'm going to flip over to a live account here. Flip over to this right here. All right, I'll make this a little bit bigger for those who might have smaller screens than me. So this is the exact same NetCloud Manager interface. This is just a demo account of our own internal devices that we use ourselves. And as you can see, regardless of the model that you have in your account, they're all managed from the same view. They all check in the exact same way. You can configure them. Configuration looks pretty much exactly the same from device to device. There's a bunch of data that you can add into the dashboard. So anything that you're interested to see, you can add columns for, or you can remove them if you don't want your interface to be as cluttered. You can click into any device and see detailed information about that device and what it's doing and how it's performing. So if I'm doing some troubleshooting, I get reports of performance issues. You'll be able to see in real time any connected Ethernet ports or interfaces here. I can see in real time connection status. So in this case, this device has an embedded 5G modem in it, and we're currently connected on 5G. So if you fail back to LTE or 3G, we can see that at a glance here. Let's make this a little bit smaller. We can see data usage. So in this case, this device has failed back to LTE periodically for about 0.9% of the time. And then you can see security information. So any blocked website requests, content filtering, if users at this site are attempting to access blocked content, we can see who that is, what they're doing, and then take corrective action. In this case, this is already being blocked, but you can put this in a log only mode if you needed to. GeoView down below. So not only will we show you GPS location, you can manually put in a location if the device is installed in a building where it's not going to get a GPS fix. But we also have the option to show where that cell tower is that it's connected to. So in this case, if I click into, and any of these cards you can click into for further investigation, I can see here's the device. This one's actually in Barcelona. I can see a bunch of information about this device, which WANs are connected, signal strength, signal quality, and then you can show you here's the cell tower that's connected to. I can see who the carrier is. I can see the bands that are advertised by it, and I can see the distance between me and that carrier. And that supports the publicly known cell towers within the major carriers in Canada. And then from a dashboard, if we go up to the dashboard tab, now we can look at some of these trends from a holistic view or from an account-wide view. You have the ability to segment your account down into multiple groups. So if you're managing things from a city level, but then want to delegate access to specific divisions or departments to different individuals for management, you can create sub-accounts within that, both for visibility, isolation, as well as configuration isolation. And then the reporting for the users that log into those sub-accounts only see what they've been given access to and nothing outside that. Now, if we look at, for example, health, so health will show you cellular health, and this gives you kind of a high-level overview of all the devices in my account, which carriers do we have SIM cards in, and this gets tracked automatically. So if you put a Bell SIM card in, Rogers, and TELUS, as soon as we detect that carrier, we start tracking that as a carrier for you automatically. We can look at failover events. So failover event to us means moving from one WAN connection to another. That can be moving from cellular to Wi-Fi as WAN. That can be moving from a wired internet connection to cellular, however you define that, but we'll track failover events, devices that are currently in a failover state here, and then we'll show you how much data is being used as well. So that way you don't get stuck where you failed over to cellular, you didn't realize it, because users continue to have access to the things they need access to, but you can get notified, and then you can make sure that eventually you move back to your primary connection when it's available. Again, can drill into any of these cards to get more detail. If I want to look at cellular health, for example, I can see every one of my modems. I can see the cellular health. If I'm not a cellular engineer or an RF engineer, it would give you the very high level detail as to excellent, good, fair, and poor connectivity. But you can click into any of these devices, and then you can see historical information and the raw data. So again, if we want to look back, you can look back up to the last 30 days, and we can see raw values for each of the connected cellular interfaces, RSRP, RSRQ, SINR, RSSI, all these things that can be handy to help, especially if you're trying to troubleshoot something that happened in the past. Or you weren't able to catch it live because it was after hours, or the ticket got submitted after the fact. You can go back and look here and see what was happening. But we can also view this live. So again, this device, I'm actually not sure where exactly this device is, but obviously it's not in Canada. This is not the same Barcelona device, so I think it's somewhere else. But without being VPN connected to it, having no direct connectivity, this will start reporting real time the live metrics here. So if you have an installer on site or somebody who's troubleshooting, but is not technical, maybe you haven't given them access to the device, you can get all the data remotely and then help guide them to reposition an antenna or adjust things within the configuration to improve performance, all completely remotely. The security tab will show all the security events. So there is an advanced security license that is an option, and that enables some of these additional applications. So that's the built-in web content filtering. That's the built-in intrusion prevention, intrusion detection. So you can see here IDS, IPS events by severity level, by signature, intrusion events over time. Again, click into any of these cards if you want to see which router was tripping these signatures, what time did that happen, which signature, how often is it reoccurring, all that kind of stuff. You can see blocked website requests by category, by domain, by client. And again, to start an investigation, into something that's trying to access things that maybe it shouldn't. You can click into any of these things. I can see blocked requests by client. I can click into a client and I can see which router are they connected to. Here, let's let this load here. So I can see here's the client, the IP address, blocked requests. I can click into this client and see, well, where is this client and what else are they doing? Is this something that has malware on it that's just attempting to reach block things frequently, or is this something that maybe is legitimate? So as we scroll down here, you can see an entire list of historical things that they've tried to access and that are blocked. We'll do the same thing for data usage. As I mentioned before, you can do data usage from a carrier side in terms of how much data has gone through your modems, but then you can also have that broken down by which modems are using the most amount of data, which groups of modems are using the most amount of data, which application categories here, applications and clients. So again, to do the same thing, if I'm seeing excessive data usage or I'm seeing poor performance because something's using more data than it should, you can start wherever you want. Start at the application level, start at the client level. For instance, if I start at a client level, can look at all the clients here. I can see which ones have used the most amount of data, along with which router that they had last connected to. So I can then click into a client, and we can see what all have they, the traffic that's been going through this device. So I can see the vast majority of this traffic is Windows Update. That may be allowed through your organization in a valid use case, in which case that's great. If you want to prevent that from going over cellular, or you can start steering that traffic. So I can say, well, when my router is connected to cellular, I want to block these high bandwidth applications that aren't necessary to my business or not time critical. Block Windows Update, block Apple updates, prevent them from using my cellular connection. But when I'm connected to Wi-Fi's WAN, when I'm connected to satellite, when I'm connected to a wired broadband connection, allow those things to go through unfiltered. And so you can get granular with the policies about where that traffic is and isn't allowed to go. All right. That's my high level overview. There's a whole lot more to see here. Would love to do a demo that might be tailored to your use case. If you want to see something for a particular use case or get a trial piece of equipment to try it within your own account, please reach out and let us know. We'd be happy to assist with that. And with that, I think that wraps us up.
Yeah, perfect. So as Nathan said, if there's any live questions, go ahead and shoot them out right now. Otherwise, if you're watching this on recording, there's mine and Nathan's email addresses. Feel free to reach out. Like Nathan said, we're happy to do anything, presentation individually, sort of talk through your specific use cases. Just let us know.